What's up, guys, and welcome, Daily Theologians. What exactly is the role of the Christian and government? Should we be out in the streets? Should we be speaking? Should we be voting? What exactly should we be doing? And what would Jesus have done potentially in our environment? And how would have people treated him? Well, I don't think the answer will surprise you, but you're going to want to stick around and check this out. So what would Jesus have done? Well, it's often difficult to speculate, but we can look back and see what happened to Jesus and why was he crucified. And we'll get to that. But before we do, I want to highlight a response to the role of the church. How does the church engage the government? What should that look like? And the best way to think about this is a recent movie called The Essential Church, released by Dr. Fresca's church, Grace Media. And here's Vodi Bakum weighing in on the power struggle in the battle that we are currently engaged in.
Today are enormous opportunities to fundamentally shift our focus from disease care models to prevention and building health equity, from primarily fixing people to also fixing systems.
If you are going to take over cultures and take over power structures, you can't have a formidable ideological opponent. And religion in general, and Christianity in particular, represents a formidable ideological opponent. God has given us three spheres. He's given us the sphere of the church, the sphere of the state, and the sphere of the family. You know, these three jurisdictional spheres. For the Marxists, the sphere of the family and the sphere of the church, those things are subsumed under the sphere of the state or the civil government. So Marxism is essentially a statist ideology. It believes that the authority of the state usurps all other authority, and the state is the one who has the authority when it comes to the limits that are going to be put on the church.
So Jesus in politics, something you don't often hear. In fact, the rule, whoever made the rule, you don't talk about religion and politics, except that's exactly where, like, the truth of reality, right and wrong, will always intersect with government. How can you govern without a set of moral conscience rules? And that's exactly the problem we're in right now. And so the answer isn't to sit back and be completely passive, but neither is the answer to put all of your hope in the current political structure or even political candidates. Here's MacArthur talking to Shapiro in the Sunday special about 2 years ago.
I avoid everything political because I also want to do anything I can to elevate justice and righteousness in the world. And so as a Christian, I want to take responsibility for whatever political avenues that I can go down that are going to increase the order of society, the blessing of society. I want to be pro-family, pro-life, pro-character, pro-virtue, pro-morality, all those kinds of things, pro-honesty, pro-kindness, pro-mercy, pro-grace, all of those things in my culture.
So we want to be pro those things, and that's courtesy of Wretched, cutting up the Sunday special. So we don't want to sit back and be monastic monks and just retreat, but we can't also make the mistake of putting all of our hope in a political system. And so Alistair Begg talks about the sovereign hand of God throughout history working in these areas.
He is the God who has called out a people for himself, and the journey of that has been going on, sometimes dramatically, often quietly, but throughout the world today, throughout the entire world, the Spirit of God is moving. And the ascended King, namely Jesus, reigns. And God is accomplishing his purposes in the world. And he is not uniquely concerned with Brexit or the United States elections. He is supremely concerned with his church throughout the entire world.
So God is more concerned with his church, his people, his kingdom that he's building than the current political systems and things of that nature. Now, it doesn't mean that God does not care. And oftentimes you'll hear people say that you can't be involved with anything political, that it's evil, that even to talk about it, or to choose a candidate, they must be Jesus himself. I mean, it's crazy. In fact, people will look at the better of two options. Clearly, one is for life and babies, and the other's not. And they'll say, well, I can't vote for him. And I don't understand that. That's a matter of conscience, of course. And so I want to get into what the London Baptist Confession has to say here. God, the supreme Lord and King of the whole world, has ordained civil authorities to be under him and over the people for his own glory and the public good. For this purpose, he's armed them with the power of the sword to defend and encourage those who do good and to punish evildoers. Now, people will often make the mistake of saying Jesus wasn't political. He never got involved in political things like the Jehovah's Witnesses. And this, of course, is where their cult is exposed. Of course he did. And I'll get to that in just a moment. But first, Jesus said the greatest commandment, love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. Second, love your neighbor as yourself. Okay, so that's the greatest commandment. If we're going to actually love our neighbor, we must act in their best interest, even if they don't know what those best interests are. You wouldn't let a child determine right and wrong for everything, or drive cars, or do things that they clearly don't have the ability to do. And many people voting and speaking in our culture really don't have the ability to function in a sane world. They're actually hurting themselves and others very clearly. It's not even debatable that they're a danger to themselves and others. And so our responsibility is to vote for righteousness, truth, and what is good. But for those that say Jesus wasn't political, so the chief priests and Pharisees gathered the council and said, what are we to do? For this man performs many signs. If we let him go on like this, everyone will believe in him, and the Romans will come and take away our place in our nation. But one of them, Caiaphas, who was the high priest that year, said, you know nothing at all, nor do you understand. It's better for one man to die, that one man should die for the people, not the whole nation. Now he's prophesying about the Messiah dying for the nation or the people. And again, that's political, right? Let's look at John chapter 19. From then on, Pilate sought to release him, but the Jews cried out, if you release this man, you're not Caesar's friend. Oh, we wouldn't want that. Everyone who makes himself a king opposes Caesar. So when Pilate heard these words, he brought Jesus out, sat down on the judgment seat of the place called the Stone Pavement, and in Aramaic, Gabbatha. So this is political. Jesus was crucified for a variety of reasons. Number one, God's sovereign redemptive plan to save the elect. But number two, this was a political coup, potentially. And when the Jews are crying out, crucify him, he's no friend of Caesar, Pilate was trying to let him go. There was no guilt in him. He was innocent. And he was crucified for political reasons because Pilate didn't want to lose his post as the Jews were trying to riot, thus causing a big problem for Pilate, who was on thin ice already. So the issue for us, here's what we can take away. Number one, steward your gift of voting. This is a gift that God has placed in your hands. People in previous generations, prior generations, have fought and died for this so that you could exercise the right to vote in a democratic republic. It's not a democracy. All right, who cares? But the point is, go vote, and hopefully it'll get counted, and just once. Hopefully it'll count one time, not many times like this. That seems to be the current strategy, which is effective, of course. But go vote and talk to people. If a majority of the people that are professing believers in this nation, or even conservatives, would just go vote, it would greatly affect for the good our neighbors. It would greatly affect the financial position of the nation. It would greatly affect the life of the preborn. It would greatly affect families and their stability. It would, all these things come down from structure. And when there's no king in the land, everyone is doing what is right in their own eyes. So I highly recommend seeing the response from MacArthur, the Essential Church. I think they handled it quite well, actually, in one of the worst nations, states, in the country. California, come on, what you doing, California? And they won. They won money. It's actually just miraculous that he didn't end up in jail. But we can learn from their view of how the church and state are both instituted by God, under God, and that we have a role and they have a role. And when their role goes off the lane, we can't submit to their role or their rule in those areas. So, of course, when the government tells us not to meet, not to pray, not to sing with a mask, I mean, there's so many things, you guys. I can't even mentally go through them again. You lived through them. Many people ignored it, but it was a hot, hot mess. But the point here is our hope is not in the government. Of course not. Oh, boy, that would be depressing. Our hope is in the true and reigning King, The King of Kings, Jesus Christ, who lived a perfect sinless life. He bore an infinite hell debt on the cross, shed his blood, because without the shedding of blood, there is no forgiveness of sin. Physically died and rose on the third day, appearing to Cephas, the 12, and over 500 people, and said, "Put your hand in my side. Here I am. I rose. Look at my hands." And God must change the heart to affect our affections. He must change the heart so that we believe this news, because this news is foolishness to those that are perishing. In fact, the book of 1 Corinthians says the natural person does not receive the things of God, nor can they. They are spiritually discerned. They're foolishness to the unbeliever. And isn't that true? We look at the Bible and we look at all the wisdom and the kindness and the goodness of God and the way that we could affect for the good those around us, and people scoff at it and say, you're a problem. Boy, loving my neighbor is a problem. Helping others, serving others, laying down your life for the good of someone else so that they could understand the truth of who God is and how they could be made right with him. Doesn't seem like that would be a bad thing. Seems like a good thing. And, anyway, let me know what you think below, and take a moment if you're watching this rant on politics and Jesus, and hammer that like button. Like the 95 Theses. Now, this is, of course, a forbidden topic to talk about this, so I would be interested to know what you think. I think there are a lot of extremes here where all your hope is in this, and then people just do nothing at all. Like, they don't even vote. And it's between evil, godlessness, and a guy that's a hot mess but has some common sense. And I can't vote for that guy. Ooh. Okay, you can't, but thank you. That's a vote the wrong way. Anyways, let me know what you think below, and God bless.